beautiful day today out here in Southern Colorado, and look who it is. Collin Plume, Noble Gold Investments.
How are you?
Hey, great to have you back. Thanks for the opportunity. How you doing out there?
I'm good. Exciting. Busy weekend. We had our live stream at Noble today talking about Jerome Powell and his meeting on Friday, which was, he had a big pivot on Friday. They basically opened up the idea to reducing rates and looking more at jobs. Friday, he basically alluded to the fact that, they have two mandates, the Fed. It's low inflation and jobs. They sort of alluded that Friday that the jobs, getting maximum jobs is actually more important today than it's ever been. And it's a reaction to the recent job reports that have come out. So he's sort of focusing. So he gave himself the flexibility that he could lower rates even if inflation is going up. Okay. Which is a new stance. They talked about it in 2012. It was something they wanted to do. They didn't enact it. They talked about it in 2020. Then obviously we had 9% inflation in 2022, so they didn't do it. They raised rates actually to try to get in front of inflation. But now he's saying we're going to look at things different. We have forget whatever happened in the past. We have to think about jobs. So that was the most recent sort of change in policy with the Fed, which I talked about in my live stream. I also went live on Friday. We talked about it, but ultimately the idea is that they're going to do what it takes, which means they're most likely going to drop rates next month and maybe be more aggressive, and then also probably do quantitative easing is what I believe they'll do.
Ooh. So the quantitative easing, I remember back in 2008, around then, they had that similar scenario, right?
Yes. Yeah. The Fed basically buys back bonds. It's a way to open up the money supply to get more liquidity out there. And the Fed now believes that getting more liquidity out there will help jobs. They also think lowering rates will help jobs. The one thing that they don't know is, will lowering rates actually lower the borrowing rate? Because if you look at what happened on Friday, usually when there's an announcement, they sort of get ahead of things. And when they announced on Friday that they had this new idea that they're going to lower rates, you would think that rates would lower, but actually the 10-year Treasury went up. So it actually went in the opposite way of what they're trying to achieve. So time will tell. September 17th is the next big meeting, and that will dictate a lot. We'll see the reaction. If they do lower rates 25 basis points or maybe 50 basis points, it'll be interesting to see how the 10-year reacts. If the 10-year goes up, that means borrowing is just getting more expensive. It's actually not helping us. So they'll have to get more aggressive. So a lot of people believe they're going to be really aggressive with cutting rates to try to get borrowing costs down. Because ultimately, even if they lower rates and borrowing costs go up, they're not really helping anybody. At the end of the day, it's the effective rate of what we're paying to get a mortgage or a loan for a business or all those things. That's what we care about, right? So if your mortgage rate still stays in the mid sixes, it doesn't really help people that much. So that we don't know what the effect will be. But so that was pretty big what happened on Friday with the Fed. And then September 17th is kind of the big date that everybody's looking and circling on their calendars to see how that will affect our money.
Do you think it's a good thing with the quantitative easing and the talks like that, or do you think it's going to cause more problems?
It's going to devalue our dollar. The dollar will lose value. I think that, you have all this money that needs to refinance next year. We have all these corporations that are looking for money. So overall, Trump's approach is to spend our way out of it. And so time will tell if this is the effective strategy. So I think in the long term, they need to find a happier medium in terms of rates. I think rates are too high, but I don't think we need to get back to where we were 5-6 years ago, where we had basically 0% federal funds rate. I think that's too low. So they need to find that kind of sweet spot. So, but it will get more liquidity. It will create some excitement. It'll spur businesses to hire. But whether it's we're shooting ourselves in the foot long term, maybe. But ultimately, like, we're trying to get things moving. And I think that the thing that, when we talked a little bit about the jobs report and how they made so many mistakes, I've been researching more and more about this. And actually, I was watching some commentator talk about it, and they were saying that, like, if you just go on consumer confidence, if you just base a lot of your stats based on that, typically consumer confidence is a good indicator of what's going on. And consumer confidence and jobs have been way down this whole year. And so if we just looked at that data and go, well, the people are speaking that they're not excited, they're worried about jobs, like, we would get ahead a lot of these reports that are coming out from the government. Because if you looked at all this year, they've actually predicted that jobs would be down, even though the BLS, which is this massive government organization, has actually, until a month ago, was predicting jobs were going okay. But if you looked at consumer confidence, it was down. So I think I think lowering rates and I think getting liquidity would help consumer confidence, which would in turn help hiring.
Okay. And then, so when, like, Trump just launched some new account.
Yeah, it's a Trump account. So basically, President Trump owes every new child $1,000, not to him directly, but the government does. And this is a fantastic idea. Bill Ackman, who's a famous hedge fund manager, came up with this idea 7 or 8 years ago. And basically, the idea is the government gives every newborn child $1,000 at birth, and then it's thrown into, like, a special type of IRA. It's not technically an IRA, but it's a special type of IRA. Mm-hmm. And the cool thing is that it'll get invested in S&P 500, and then family members can contribute to it. Parents or grandparents up to $5,000, and then even employers actually can contribute for children $2,500 a year. And if you look at just like the $1,000 being contributed and just a bare minimum at 18, when the child would have access to the money, it would basically be around $70,000 just based on the fact that it accrues over time. But if you do the math and let's say you can convince that child to not take the money at 18, you can say, hey, wait until you're 50 and everybody contributed a few $1,000s a year. It would easily be millions of dollars of like a net worth, an investment because, the eighth wonder of the world is compound interest. And so having them have the ability to start at birth is a phenomenal thing. And actually I didn't start at birth. I wish I did, but I started at 5 with my children. I bought them life insurance, and it's universal life. So it accrues, and similar situation. I put a few $1,000s a year for them for 10 years. I'm obligated. And then if I don't touch it, they'll have, I think at 65, they'll have like, I don't know, $2.3 million, $2.4 million wow. in the account. So it's a really good way to set people up. And it's and it's funny because I'm seeing seeing politicians saying like, how are we going to fund this? And it's like all the money that we're spending in this country that we can't afford $1,000 for a newborn. It's laughable, the amount of money we're spending on defense and all of these things that are out there. But yeah, it's starting younger. I mean, we're in the IRA business with precious metals and you can really see the effect of growth over time, tax-free growth. And that's the great thing about this. And this can be used in conjunction with a college account, like a 529. It's totally separate, but I do think it's a good idea. And I think everybody should take advantage. And everybody that has a child that gets this, they should, instead of buying this child, some stupid toy or something they're never going to use or something they're going to break, you should allocate some of the money to these accounts. And this is one of the ways that we can work our way out of this deficit, is that, really the big problem today that everybody sees is the wage gap and the wealth gap, because everyone starts behind the eight ball, either through college debt or other type of debt. And this is a beautiful way to give a child some kind of net worth. They can start early. And so my kids, perfect example, they have, if they had this Trump account, but they weren't born, but if they did, they have, the life insurance that I bought for them, and then I have the gold and silver. So I have these two assets that are going to grow over time to help protect them. So it's a great idea. And I think everyone should take advantage of it and try to contribute as much as they can to it.
If they get that passed, sounds like some people are going to be making some more babies.
Yeah, I mean, right? I mean, if you knew that your kid would have the availability to have this kind of capital later on, I think it would make it a lot easier, because they are saying, in places where they typically people have 3, 4, 5 children in a family, they're really slowing down. Some of these states like Utah and Wyoming, and some of these states that people would just have more, they're really being price conscious. They're just concerned that they're not going to be able to afford it. But if they knew that these kids could start and have this money and put them in a better situation, so you don't have to worry about them past 18 or 20, they have a little bit of a head start. I do think it would be helpful. And it's sort of like the idea behind Social Security, in that, it was another source of income, and hopefully it's not the only source of income that you set aside for your children, but it's just another way to kind of set them apart. And it's a great thing for this country. And you look at, there's a lot of countries, Norway and all these countries that have these funds for people that are citizens. We don't really have anything like that. So it's exciting. And the fact that you can contribute up to $5,000 a year all the way up to 18. And the math is scary when you do that. You're looking at, if you did 5,000 a year all the way up to 18, I think you could get, depending on how the market does, you could have $3-4 million in there by 65. And so I think that would give people a lot of confidence to go out and take jobs that maybe they wouldn't normally take jobs, because they know they got this nest egg later on. And so people could take on careers that are going kind of by the wayside, and not so focused strictly on making a lot of money. Be nice for people to be able to choose a career because they have this nest egg that they actually enjoy and want to do.
Oh, what a fantastic idea. It made me think of Norway, actually.
Yeah.
So if they do that in 20 years, the economy that could be a game changer. That could be 100% game changer. How awesome is that? I love this idea.
Yeah. And also it puts money in our stock market too, which,
Okay.
it's money that's going to sit in our stock market, and, there's no, people moving in and out of investments. It's a way to show some strength in our US stock market. So there's multiple reasons it's effective. And I think over time they'll start to offer other assets like gold and silver too, which I think is great. So
Yeah.
I think it's a great measure. It's exciting. And it's one of the things that Trump's been focused on, is setting our children up for the future for success.
Oh, that's so cool. And, a lot of people right now, especially whether they're working for the government, some government job, or private, there's a lot of uncertainty. I've got family that's actually working for the military in Germany, for the Department of Defense. They do human resources, my brother and his wife, and they're a bit concerned about what the future holds because of all of the, I don't want to say instability, but all of the shuffling that's going on behind the scenes. And I know there's a lot of people that are concerned about Social Security and Social Security becoming privatized, but there's also something going on right now with private equity shell game, basically.
Yeah. So in essence, in a recent declaration by President Trump, he wanted to open up other investments to 401ks. And he talks about crypto being available in 401ks, but it's already been available. But he sort of put his name behind crypto. Obviously, he's been the crypto president. And we have a company that does IRAs in crypto already, mydigitalmoney.com. So if anybody wants an IRA in crypto, we could do that. But the thing that was sort of shocking and a little bit concerning was that he wanted to open up private equity to 401ks. And private equity has been limited to accredited investors. And it's been limited to accredited investors, in my opinion, for a reason, because there's a few things. One, private equity, they typically lock up your money for 5, 7, or 10 years. So you don't have the liquidity that you do in mutual funds or precious metals or all those things. But really behind the scenes, the reason that there's been a lot of lobbying for private equity into 401k is that the 401k market is a $12 trillion. I mean, it's a massive market of money. And private equity has really been struggling. A lot of the major foundations and funds have been pulling money out of private equity because the returns have been lower than what they've anticipated. So these funds like Harvard and all these corporations that have been using private equity for their investment have been pulling out. And so there's been massive lobbying to the government to allow regular investors like you and I to put money into. But the problem is that private equity, their math is done in their own way. And what I mean by that is that when you have a fund and that fund buys a company, they can determine the value of that company in their own way. And there's been a lot of laws against it. They've tried to change it, but basically, their whole idea of how to grow their money is they basically say, we'll take your, $50,000 and we're going to go to the market. We're going to find all these undervalued companies and we're going to invest into them, which is a good idea. The problem is that when they buy into that company, the valuation of that company is done by them. And so the valuation of that private equity fund is determined by the valuation that they create. And so they could create a valuation that is on metrics that they believe is accurate and may or may not be. But the problem is a lot of these endowments have said these funds, the way that they value the companies they're investing into is not accurate. And we've gotten returns that are substantially lower than what we anticipated. It was just better if we just invested in the stock market or invested in gold, or we didn't give the money to this big fund. The other thing is that they have these massive fees. So they charge a 2% fee to get in, and they also make 20% of the profit. So private equity, they make more than a typical mutual fund. They make more than a typical fund in general. And the idea would be that the returns are higher. However, what we've seen the last few years, the returns have not been higher. So then you're just in essence paying much higher fees. So when you add that 2% fee in private equity, you add that 401k fee, you could be at 2 or 3% right off the top off your investment. And that's important for an everyday investor that, that 2 or 3% right off the top could be a lot. Two, the liquidity, the fact that you don't have access to your money as quickly as other investments. So I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about having that. And I'm concerned about the idea that, people are going to have this access to invest into it. And from what I found, when people do 401ks, they're not studying that every day. They're not looking at it every day. They typically they'll either take a moderate or aggressive approach and they'll just let it sit. So they're not really looking at the fees. So I think what people are going to find is that they're getting access to things that seem great, but actually what the private equity funds want is they want a huge new group of uneducated investors. And that's why typically it's for accredited investors, because accredited investors will have a lot of different investments and maybe they'll do a small part with private equity this is kind of their gambling. But for most people today, they don't have the ability to gamble. They're looking for safe bets. And so I'm quite concerned about private equity. It's just another, you're adding crypto, which is highly volatile, and now you're having private equity, which is highly volatile and very expensive fees. So it's something to be careful. And just because they offer it, just because there's a lot of hype, just because it seems great that wealthy investors have had access to it, doesn't mean it's the best investment out there. And so I just warn people to be careful. They just have a lot of loopholes in private equity. And I just think unless you're studying it every day, you're not going to know which is the best one to invest into. So I think it could be a little bit risky.
Okay. And like the gold and silver and platinum right now. So I've been, I'm a huge silver tard, love gold, love platinum. I'm really glad. So folks, a few years ago, I buy in increments, but a few years ago, I bought a decent little nest egg from Collin and Noble Gold Investments. And I'm looking at the numbers now versus just a few years ago. And hello, man, those are some happy numbers.
Yeah,
Platinum's going crazy.
Platinum is up 50% this year. And the cool thing about platinum is it's a really hard metal to find. I mean, it's not a metal that is easily mined. And listen, people that love platinum, we got beaten up for many years, but finally things are starting to take off a little bit, and platinum's starting to move up. And I just think that being diversified within the metals is really important. So we've seen a big uptick in the last 2 to 3 years in platinum our clients buying platinum. But there's this new cancer fighting drug. There was a report that came out today, and they're talking about this new drug that is platinum based. It's a cancer fighting drug. It's platinum based. And the cool thing is it's showing incredible results against advanced prostate cancer. And they're seeing that, some of these prostate cancer remedies, I mean, they could be $150,000 a year, whereas some of these ones in platinum are like, 1/100th of that price. And they're platinum. They have a platinum base. There's platinum based drugs. There's platinum based chemotherapy. So yeah, instead of paying $150,000 a year, you're paying a few $1,000s a year, which is still expensive, but a lot of it's hopefully covered by insurance. And so platinum is finding a new use, and it's incredible. They're talking about there's a BRCA gene mutation, and it's linked to prostate and breast cancer, and they're using platinum drugs almost 48% of the time, and they're seeing just incredible results. So that's really exciting too. And that's the thing that I've always talked about with like gold and silver. They're just finding new uses all the time, every year, that we haven't even thought of, right? I mean, this is a totally new use. I mean, they didn't have this 10 years ago. And now we're seeing that the usage of platinum is helping fight prostate cancer, which is an amazing thing.
You know what? I don't know if the powers that be jumped in there or it was just a little glitch for a second, but there was about 10 seconds that we lost when you said platinum. You started talking about the benefits of platinum, and then we lost you.
Okay.
So what was the last 10 seconds of what you
said?
I
was just saying that we're seeing this massive increase in use in platinum, and it's being used in breast cancer drugs and prostate, and these usage that we have today, these weren't around 10 years ago. And it's like we're finding new usage of silver and platinum and gold that we never have. And that's why they're just incredible metals to own, is because they just every year there's a new type of usage that we're just not aware of that we're going to need it for. And I don't know if this is the main reason that we've seen the price pick up 50% this year. I think a lot of it has to do with catalytic converters, but I do think over time, if these drugs continue to have this effective rate, we're going to see more usage and more need for it. So it's just an amazing thing that these metals that you can own in your hands can help with all the technology in the world, plus help fight prostate cancer and breast cancer.
That's really cool. That makes me happy to hear that. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
I love seeing technology and advancements, especially in the medical field, that really help people. So I just look forward to seeing the future of that. And another thing I was thinking about too, like, cause I have seen these huge jumps in platinum. Gold and silver are doing awesome. I was thinking about a lot of people have talked about monatomic gold. And this is just a little bit of a 10-second idea here, but people try to make it. And I would be very leery to, oh, this is monatomic gold, try it, it's going to do this for you. But I wonder if there was a time back in the day when, they were making these pyramids and doing these incredible things with megaliths, if they actually figured out a way to do something with gold that amplified something to the human body or the human spirit. I don't know. But now we're hearing about the platinum and what it's doing for these cancer patients.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. It's really cool. Silver.
Yeah, I mean, they use silver in that too. I mean, there's silver sprays. I don't know if you've ever used any of those. I mean, they do use those things for your body, for health. I've had a number of people give me a spray that has like some silver elements to it.
Yeah.
But we're learning more and more about what these metals can do. And I think that the more technology continues to use them, we're going to need them. And, and this is, part of the reason that I just love what I do day to day is that not only are we talking about metals that are money, like gold's money,
right,
but it's also, it's in central banks and they're holding it in big vaults. and you could get a piece, you could buy that, you can do that, but also we're thinking about ways that they're using it in tech in studies and heart monitors and all the things that we use day to day. So it's just a very unique business that we're in, the commodities business. So and we do have a new platinum guide if anyone's interested in learning specifically about platinum. And I also dive into platinum in my book. I have a whole chapter. Obviously we talk a lot about silver in the book. We talk about platinum, we talk about real estate opportunities, and then we just really talk about entrepreneurship in my book. So if anybody's interested in any of those, it's on Amazon as Silver's the New Oil, or you can go to Noble Gold Investments and we have some codes so you can get access to the book for free.
No, I appreciate that. I also wanted to go over just an article real quick with you. I don't understand how are they doing this? So Platinum's wild price puzzle, why Canada costs 46% more than America. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, some places you have a different in terms of the price. It really has to do with the supply chain breakdown in Canada, that they just don't have access to it the way that we do.
Okay.
And typically these things do come back to earth. Coupled with the fact that they're using platinum a lot in catalytic converters, so that a lot of the platinum is getting diverted into that. But I think ultimately, those gaps fall into place, but we are seeing that gap right now where they're having to pay a huge premium for platinum in Canada. Those things come back to earth over time, but ultimately they need platinum, so they're going to pay it because they need it catalytic converters. They need it for all these things happening in medical. So, unfortunately, Canada is eating that significant increase. But in terms of just like the growth over time, the spreads will come back down to earth eventually.
Okay, cool. Yeah, well, Canadians, did you hear that? Can they call you instead?
They can call and buy it from us. Absolutely. We will not charge that 46% increase that they're getting charged in the country of Canada. The 51st state, as President Trump likes to say. So, but otherwise than that, Rex, yeah, I mean, that's it. I'm excited. If anybody wants to learn, get the book, call us. And then obviously on our live stream today, we talked a lot about the Fed meeting. I go in a little bit more detail. So if anybody's looking to dive into that a little more, check out our YouTube channel and you can learn a little bit about what the Fed said. I basically broke down Jerome Powell into 30, 45-second sound bites. And then I dive into it after and explain what he's talking about, because Jerome Powell is great at kind of saying a lot and saying nothing. So I really wanted to break that down for people in a digestible form.
Yeah, appreciate that. Folks, subscribe to Collin's YouTube channel. Watch the live streams. Quick and easy, very informative. Gets rid of the fluff, just the real stuff. So if you call Noble Gold Investments too, I would strongly recommend, now there's obviously never any guarantees. So you follow the big banks, you follow the hedge fund managers. Even hedge fund managers are usurping up gold right now at record levels, which is pretty uncommon for hedge fund managers to do that. Yeah. Give them a call, 1-877-646-5347. Let them know Rex from Leak Project sent you. And then they have a special offer. I think they're giving a special coin right now for Leak Project listeners. So just let them know that you heard from Leak Project. And ask about the book. Ask about the free guide. You guys still have the free guides that you're helping people out with?
Absolutely. Yeah. Tons of free information. Talk to a live person that does this every day and get informed. Learn. We're here to provide information. And as always, Rex, thanks for having me on and looking forward to talking to you on the next one.
You're smart, man. You know your stuff. Like, I love listening to you about finances because it's one of those topics that, as much as I want to know about it, it seems to be very difficult to obtain all this knowledge. You've been doing this for a long time, though.
But I've been in the finance, in some form or another, from commercial real estate to insurance to precious metals for a long time. So my mind's always been wired this way, and my job is to break it down and make it easy. And hopefully I did that today. And thank you so much for being a partner. And looking forward to helping anyone that calls in. We'd love to give you some good information.
Right on. Thanks, Collin. Have a beautiful day.
Thanks, Rex.
Thank you.